Welcome, parents, to the Impactful Parents Inspire and Learn series, where real parents come on and tell their real stories of inspiration and learning. Because a wise man learns from his mistakes, but a wiser man learns from other people's mistakes. So let's learn today from our guest speaker, Charity Buhrow. And Charity is going to talk to us today about living with a narcissist parent.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
So I'm sure there is a journey that has gotten you to this place. And I know it's probably a really long story for you, but I really would like to hear how you grew up and what are some of the things that has happened to you over your many years of living that has made you the person that you are and that you had to learn from, right?
Yeah. As a kid, we live in a really rural area of Wisconsin. Okay. Great childhood when I look back on it. You know, when I was little, we had go-karts and swimming pools, and we lived out in the country, and it was get up, hop on your bikes, go out, hang out with the friends. And as I got older, right around 8 or 9 years old, my mom would be like, I'm your mom first, but we have the potential to be best friends. I want you to tell me everything and anything. Ideal, right? I mean, that's how I want to be as a mom too. I want you to come to me, but I want to be able to set that line where I'm still the parent. These are the rules. This is what we have to do. I'm here to teach. And as I got older, it was really slowly progressive, and it was confusing because I would share things with her that were super intimate to me, at least, at 9, 10 years old. I get it. But then it would get thrown back in my face and it would throw me off. And I'd be like, oh, okay, well, maybe that was wrong. Self-doubt started to set in at a very, very young age. And it was so subtle. There would be a time where she'd buy me a diary and she'd be like, here, you can keep all your intimate thoughts in here, and here's a lock on it. And you don't have to worry about anyone breaking in. Until one day I went in there to write, and I wrote every day about my day. I look back on it now and I'm like, oh, I was so cute. But then she started answering and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. What? I'd get an answer from her. You're ungrateful. Maybe if you hadn't acted like that, I wouldn't have had to yell at you. I'm 11 and you just violated my trust on such a deep level. And I started distrusting at that moment. Loved math, love algebra. And I would always hear, you're so bad at it. I have A's. I have B pluses. My teachers are telling me I'm doing a great job in school. I'm thriving in it. And she's like, no, you're stupid. You don't know how to do math. And I'm like, well, I have the grades. I'm passing the test. I ended up in accounting. When I turned like 20 years old, I ended up with an accounting job and HR and numbers everywhere. And I kept going, why do I have this job? I'm horrible at math. I didn't realize that was residual from that. The job I thrived at. I was great at the job. It was all these little subtle things. I was really thin growing up, very tall, blonde. And it was, oh, you're so beautiful. We need to, let people see that because you're blonde. No one's ever going to take you serious. You're kind of ditzy. I'm actually kind of smart, but okay. This is coming from my mom. And everything was always about her. And then it started to get even more vicious with, they're all looking at you. You dressed me. She would buy my clothes for me, but tell me not to tell my dad. She encouraged us to lie to our dad, which that's a struggle and a half because he's like, hey, I like your outfit. Where'd you get that from? And all of a sudden you're like, oh no, I have to lie. He's the primary moneymaker. She's the stay-at-home mom. It was the ideal family from the outside world. My friends never believed me. They never saw that aspect of her. And it was, your makeup had to be done. Your hair had to be done. Oh, you should be a model. You're so pretty. You're so thin. And then I'd be like, hey, mom, I have this opportunity. No, I didn't get to do it. You're not going to do it. I don't want them looking at you. I don't want them to judge me based on you. We go into public. Don't talk about our money. They're trying to take our money. Again, it was the 80s. We didn't have a whole lot. So I was confused. My grandparents lived 5 doors down from us. And I really wanted to have a relationship with them because they were so close. I mean, they're my grandparents. And it was, no, 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 no. They're spying on us. They break into our house. You can't talk to them. They hate me. It was always about her. She got a part-time job one time at one of the local taverns out here. People loved her. Great personality. I mean, just super friendly. Paints that whole, I'm a great person. Now that I look at it, I can see what a lot of that was. But she came home one day and all of her friends had turned on her. They were like, you are so full of crap. You lie about everything. They saw through it and they cut her off. And then it really started to spiral downhill pretty quickly after that. She started videotaping the neighbors. She would watch the videos and be like, look what they're doing. I can't believe they're doing it. I embarrassed her at church because I asked questions. I was 12. I was 13. I had questions. That's what kids do. This one, I love dance class. I am not a naturally graceful person. I'm the one who forgets to turn the doorknob and you run straight into the door. I laugh. It's just part of who I am. And we put you in dance class, so hopefully you could at least walk across the room because we all know how non-graceful you are. Well, then it got to be too much for her to drive me to dance class twice a week. And she'd blame my dad for it instead of just saying, I don't want to drive you. Well, your dad's not letting us. And I'm like, why wouldn't he let us? He tells us all the time to, do stuff, be active, get outside. And he was a horrible dad, according to her. He never was there for us. He was working, making money, paying the bills. When he was there, like after work, we had a blast with him. I don't have one bad memory with my dad. He found ways to take us lawn mowing. He made things count. It was so great. And it was really confusing. By the time I was 15, it hit me that, I don't want to be here anymore. I didn't want to be on the planet. I didn't want to be in that house, but I put on a smile because I didn't want anyone to know. I was scared. She threatened to beat us with a belt if we ever let anyone know what was going on. She was convinced we were doing drugs. Okay. Unincorporated town in the middle of Wisconsin. I didn't know what drugs were. I had no clue. I'm like, what are drugs? You mean going outside and playing? Is that wrong? She would dust our desks looking for whatever it was she was looking for. And then she'd get mad she didn't find anything. We'd get grounded for ridiculous things, locked in our rooms. And then it would be, I'm so sorry. If you hadn't done this, I wouldn't have done that to you. I'm a child, man, but none of that clicked. And I realized at one point that my self-esteem had plummeted so much by the time I was 19 years old. I was terrified of judgment from anyone. I thought everyone was out to get me. I didn't think I'd ever make anything of myself. I didn't even go to college because she told me, if you don't go to school for what I tell you to go to and live here during college, we're not helping you. You're never going to make it. She got mad one day and spent all my money, the money I'd saved up to move out. Okay, I'll move out without any money then.
So I have two questions that come to my head as I hear your story. And the first one is, I get this feeling that you felt like a puppet.
Yes.
Is that accurate? Okay, so that's accurate. Can you tell me what other, just for anybody who's like listening to this right now and thinking, I wonder if that's why I feel this way too. And, maybe my mom or my dad did that to me too. And they're not quite sure. And they're trying to decide whether they maybe might be a victim of a narcissist parent. What other adjectives could you give to how that felt besides, okay, I felt like a puppet, but what other adjectives could you add to that?
Confusion is a big thing because the emotional roller coaster, you go from feeling loved to like, you're full of shame. Like, you bring shame to them. You are the cause of their suffering and their pain. It's very disheartening. You beat yourself up for it. You feel
like you're at blame. is what I'm hearing
yeah,
you say.
yeah.
Okay.
You start carrying that, and it actually starts to feel heavy after a while. Like you're responsible for their happiness, and no matter what you do, they will never be happy. You could jump through rings of fire. You could dress exactly the way they want you to. You could clean their house, mow their lawn. You could do all of this, and they'll still find fault. And it's a really heavy thing. You may even start to notice that you're trying to make excuses to not spend time with them. That was a big red flag for me. When I started doing that, I was like, I'm sick. But when it's a repetitive thing, a continual thing, where you're always being blamed and they are never at fault, they never admit, hey, I messed up, man. Some of those red flags, man, they were banners, they were neon signs, when they project, well, when I did this, you should do this. A lot of shitting. You should do this. But they're not living that same thing that they're telling you. They're not leading by example. You start to feel, I don't know, one thing I did pick up on is I used to say dance, puppet dance, and I'd say it sarcastically. And now that you said you felt like a puppet, that true story. Really, I mean, you do, because no matter what you do, they're pulling the strings and still not good enough. And then they like throw you off to the side and then they pick you back up in a dance puppet. And you just know something's not right in your heart, in your soul, in your gut. Listen to that. It's a powerful sensation. And if you are confused, reach out to anyone, someone you trust. You definitely have to trust the person you're going to, in order to talk to them about something like this, because you're going to start feeling crazy. Like you are the problem. I did. I
could see that one of the hardest things about this as a child would be wanting to get help from somebody, but knowing that whoever you talk to, feeling like they're not going to believe you because your mom is so likable.
Yes. Oh, that is a big one. That's a huge one. I ran into that roadblock, so many times. I would go to someone and I would explain what was going on, and they're like, oh, you're just being hypersensitive. Okay, you're not seeing it, and then they'd see it 5 years later and come back and apologize. You feel vindicated, and it's hard to not go, told you so. But people are only equipped to see what they're ready to see. So it's not easy. You keep going until you find someone that is willing to say, okay, I'll help you. That's the most powerful thing, because after a while you burn out and you're just so tired. You're just like, I don't want to go home. I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to have to explain this to another person yet again to only be shot down. It's a continual, your mind. You start to doubt yourself a lot. You start to feel like you're crazy.
And would you say for you, was there ever a particular instance that happened that made that aha moment that made you think, I need help?
Yeah. My first marriage took a little bit in my 20s.
So you had to kind of step away from it for a little bit in order to actually get the aha moment.
Yes. Yeah. I had to get out of it. When I graduated, I moved out 3 days after graduation. I could not get out of that house fast enough. I was like, no, I need to leave. And she kept trying to come over and like, you don't have your apartment set up right. And I'm like, this is my space. And I was getting mad. And no matter what I did, it was never right. Dishes weren't done right. House wasn't clean enough. And I'm like, go home. I stopped inviting her over. I stopped going over there. I used to go over there all the time. I just stopped. I'm like, I can't. And I started to notice that I felt better the more I pulled away from that. I was like, oh, I kind of like the peace and quiet. Met a guy. He's the father of my child. So he's a nice guy. But we had a relationship and decided that we wanted to have kids, and something just didn't sit right. But I wanted to have kids. So I got pregnant, planned, pregnancy. And then in the hormonal influx of that, I got married because I panicked. I didn't want to have a different name than my kid. I didn't want my kid to grow up being ridiculed like I was. It was one of those where I started to panic. So we quickly got married at the courthouse, had my daughter And they handed her to me. And 3 seconds later, I'm like, oh, and I looked over at him and I'm like, oh no, what did I do? And that was my aha moment. And that's when I realized I had actually married a version of my mom. And that aha moment really set a lot of it into motion, though, for me, where I really started to go, okay, I've got a couple choices here. I can let this make me really bitter and really unhappy and stay stuck, or I can use this as a stepping stool.
People who are listening that can resonate with your story and don't know what those first steps are to recovery, for help, what would you say those were or are, or, tips for that person who's listening right now?
The biggest step you can take is to recognize that it's not your fault. First off, none of it is your fault. Okay. The second step that I took was I went and I found a doctor. I found just a primary care physician. She was fantastic. It took me 9 tries to find her, but when I found her, I knew that she was going to listen to me. She was absolutely amazing. I had thrown up my back, had 2 young children. My thyroid was all over the board. I was a hot mess. Everything just fell apart. And everything I was going through in my marriage, I had already lived through as a child with my mom. It was replaying. And I was so blown away by how similar it was. And so once that aha moment kicked in, he kept telling me, he's like, you're freaking crazy, man. You need drugs. And I walked into the doctor's office. I was crying and I'm like, help, I need something. I'm broken. And she's like, no, you're not. She goes, well, physically we have some work to do. Your back is shot and stuff. She goes, is everything okay at home? Oh, it's fine. It's fine. I didn't want to talk about that. And she encouraged me to go see a counselor. And it took a couple of tries on that one too, until I found one I was comfortable with. I cannot stress that enough. Find someone you trust and find someone you're comfortable with, because if you don't trust them, it's not going to work. You're not going to let your true self come through. You're not going to want to tell them the things that they need to hear to help you. And that's the most important part out of all of it. And it turned out I didn't need meds. I wasn't crazy. I didn't need a hospital. That was a pretty powerful moment in itself, because I was like, oh, I have a chance. This is great. I love it. So that would be my biggest recommendation, is always make sure that the help that you're seeking is someone that you really just connect with. Even if it, for some people, sometimes it's a coach like myself, and it's not necessarily the counseling route. Do what's good for you. That I cannot stress that enough. People are usually projecting their own inner struggles onto the people in front of them every time. And that is one of the most powerful aha moments I've had in the last few years, is to realize that my mom didn't know what she was doing. She didn't set out to purposely harm us. It's how she was raised. I don't know the details about that. My grandparents have since passed. But I can see it in her sisters, in her brother, and she just did the best she could with what she had. I don't hold ill will. That's why I don't see myself as a victim or a survivor, because it taught me so much. It taught me how to be a good mom, how not to treat my children so they were scared of me, how to share this with all these other children and other parents. It's just so incredible that I have these opportunities now to do this. And then I get to share things like with you when I get to meet you on Zoom. I can't help but feel overwhelmed and so blessed that everything I've gone through during the time, I did not think it was that great. But now I look back on it and I'm like, dang, that set me up for amazing things in life, just because I'm a small
really beautiful.
It's
a really beautiful sentiment that you could take so much pain and confusion in your childhood and really turn it into the amazing woman that you are right now. So kudos to you. So that it is just fantastic. My heart is full knowing that that you can sit here and tell my audience your story with such open eyes but also a feeling of heal, like you have healed. It feels like
Yes.
you have a lot of healing
Yes.
feelings, and that you don't have resentment towards your mother, which is really,
Oh.
really great. If people resonated with your story today and they want to reach out and learn more from you or just get in touch with you for any reason at all, how would they do that?
The best way to get a hold of me would be off my website. It's www.ryzempowerment.com.
Charity, thank you so much for being on the Impactful Parent today. I am just, it's been so wonderful to hear your story. Audience, if you have an inspiring story that you want to share and you want people to learn from you, please go to the Impactful Parent website. It's at theimpactfulparent.com and sign up. You'll see a work with me tab that I have on my website that you can go down to the bottom and fill that out. I love to hear your inspiring story also. And until next time, you got this, parents. We're just here to help.